Hi, this is Rodolfo Eric Angat, your teacher in Earth and Environmental Science. Today we'll be learning about deforestation. Our essential question for today is, how do I explain the consequences of deforestation? Our target competencies are, I can identify the factors that result to deforestation. I can identify the impact of deforestation to our environment. I can explain the importance of trees and other vegetation in preventing flood and erosion and the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. I can explain why carbon sinks are important. And finally, I can suggest ways on how to protect our forest and our soil. Let us begin the lesson by defining deforestation. Deforestation is the action of clearing a wide area of trees. Deforestation affects us in many ways. The first one is flooding. Trees absorb water from the ground, and this water is released back into the atmosphere or stored in the bodies of the vegetation or the trees. Thus, they help prevent flooding. They also prevent erosion because of their roots. The roots of the trees and all the other vegetation bind the soil, preventing it from being carried away by the runoff or by wind. Deforestation also bring about endangered species. When we destroy the forest, we also destroy the habitat of many living things. And because they lose their home, many of them die and they become endangered. Some animals do not recover anymore when they lose their homes, so they cannot adapt. So this leads to their extinction. Another thing that is a result of deforestation is global warming. Global warming is one of the major problems that we have right now. Our planet is getting so warm that it is leading to climate change. And of course, hunger, because we get a lot of food from the forest. But then again, it can also, deforestation is happening also because of agriculture so that we can also produce food. So it's a balance between the two. I don't know if we can consider that a bad thing or a good thing, but some farmers, they actually clear the forest so that they can convert it into farms and provide us the food that we need in order to survive. Maybe we can do something that is more sustainable, and we'll be learning more about that as we proceed. Now, to summarize the effects of deforestation, again, we have increase in wildfires. We have the loss of biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the many different kinds of living things on Earth. Now, if many organisms would die and become extinct, then the biodiversity would be lost. Another thing is increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. Trees use the carbon dioxide in the air, thus they help in lessening the greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide. When we cut the trees, then the carbon dioxide just stays there, and as we burn more fossil fuel and other organic materials, we add more carbon dioxide into the air, and this carbon dioxide is not removed because the forest has been cleared. Another effect is increased flooding, and then the disruption of the water cycle, and of course, drought. Now, if we have so many problems associated with deforestation, why are we allowing deforestation then? That's the big question. And here are the answers to the question that I raised up earlier. So why is deforestation happening? Number one, we need food in order to survive. There are so many people now on earth and we need more farms. We need agriculture. So in order for farmers to grow more crops, they need to clear the forest so that they can convert the forested land into agricultural lands. Logging. Why do we have to cut trees? Because we need homes. Wood come from trees, and the wood is used in building homes, building tables, and a lot of other things. If we do not have wood, then we will not be having new homes, or we will not be able to repair homes. So we need the wood from the trees, and that's why logging is done. Logging is the process of cutting trees so that we can get the wood as and use it as a raw materials. Number three is urbanization. In urbanization refers to the moving of people to the city. So this is a city right here. As the city expands, more land is needed so that they can build more buildings and structures like schools, hospitals, homes. So in order to have those land, they have to cut more trees. And then, aside from the agricultural activities, logging and urbanization, another reason why deforestation is happening is because of the certification. The certification can be associated with overgrazing and can also be associated with climate change. And then mining. So in mining, they have to clear the land, they have to remove everything on the surface so that they can excavate those big rocks and then break those big rocks and get the minerals from them. Why do we do mining then? We will not be having our cell phones, computers, and many electronic devices without mining. The minerals that are used in creating our technology are acquired through mining. Moreover, the fossil fuel that we're using to produce electricity and other forms of energy is mostly acquired through mining. Fossil fuels like oil, coal, and natural gas are acquired through mining. Forest fires also result to deforestation, just like what is happening in the western side of the United States in California. A lot of forest fires are happening, and this is causing massive deforestation. So these are the major causes of deforestation: agricultural activities, logging, urbanization, desertification, mining, and forest fires. Transpiration is the process where water contained in liquid form in plants is converted to vapor and released to the atmosphere. This is the reason why I said earlier that without trees, the water cycle is disrupted. Trees help make the water cycle work because they get the water from the ground and release it into the atmosphere in the form of water vapor through the process of transpiration. This water vapor rises up into the sky and become clouds, and the clouds become precipitation. And precipitation, this is how precipitation works. So the plant absorbs the water from the ground, bring it up to the leaves, and then from the leaves, the water evaporates into the air. Again, when the water releases the plants through their leaves, we call that transpiration. The carbon cycle. Trees are very important because they are considered very valuable carbon sinks. We'll be learning more about carbon sinks later, but one thing that you have to remember is that trees and other vegetation take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, or they remove the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use it in order to produce their food. So to simplify, trees and other vegetation lessen the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. Carbon sink is a forest. Carbon sink is also the ocean or other natural environment viewed in terms of its ability to absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is associated with global warming. The more carbon dioxide we have in the atmosphere, the more severe is global warming. So in order to alleviate global warming, we need to lessen the carbon dioxide, and trees are the ones that can help on this. Okay? And you'll see in this picture that this tree is absorbing the carbon dioxide released from a factory, because trees and other vegetation are what we call as carbon sinks. The ocean is also a carbon sink because the ocean has a lot of algae known as phytoplanktons. These phytoplanktons also use the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to produce their food. Thus, they help also in alleviating global warming. So these are the ones that I was talking about earlier. There are algae in the ocean called phytoplanktons, and these phytoplanktons are also carbon sinks. They they use the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, thus alleviating the problem that we have with global warming. Phytoplankton is a carbon sink, and this is how they look like if you observe them using a microscope. These are the phytoplanktons. You will not see them if you do not use a microscope, but with a microscope, this is how they look like. Most probably you are familiar with plankton in SpongeBob. So plankton is an example of a phytoplankton. That's why he's green. Okay. Now you will notice here that the sea and the trees are talking. Hey sea, we trees are sick of being carbon sinks for people who don't seem to care. If only trees can talk, right? And the ocean answered, I agree, let's start a slowdown on our natural services. If the trees and the phytoplanktons in the ocean stop using or stop removing the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, then Earth will become so hot that we won't be surviving. Now, we have this illustration here. Let's try to classify the following: oil, trees, polar bear, and plant. Which of these are considered as carbon sinks or carbon sink? So remember, a carbon sink is any reservoir, natural or man-made, that absorbs more carbon than it releases and thereby lowers the concentration of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So let's begin with oil. Is it a carbon sink or not? It releases carbon dioxide, so it is not a carbon sink. How about deforestation? When we cut the trees, is that carbon sink or not? It releases also carbon dioxide because instead of using the carbon dioxide, this tree now is dead, so it would decompose and release carbon dioxide. So it is not a carbon sink. Deforestation is not a carbon sink. How about this polar bear? It also releases carbon dioxide because animals release carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen and we release carbon dioxide. So we are not carbon sink. And finally, we have photosynthesis. This plant here performs photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process whereby the carbon dioxide is absorbed from the air, the water is absorbed from the ground, and they are combined together using the energy from sunlight to produce food. So is photosynthesis releasing or using carbon dioxide? It uses carbon dioxide, it absorbs the carbon dioxide. Thus, this plant here is a carbon sink. Photosynthesis is a carbon sink. Okay, so this is the carbon sink. These are not carbon sinks. Now, let's go to one of the factors responsible for deforestation, and we call this urbanization. When people move to the city expands, and when the city expands, it needs more land, and in order to get those land, they have to clear the forest. They have to cut the trees. And that is how urbanization results to deforestation. Urbanization is a result of economic development. That is true. The larger the city, the bigger is the development. But if people will not be taking care of the environment, it will boomerang back to them and it will cause more harm than good. That's why we need to maintain sustainability by growing and at the same time protecting our environment. Now, this is another one. This is agriculture. Here there are two parts of agriculture. This one here on the left side is the growing of crops. It's a farm. And this one is the growing of livestock or animals. Both of these are part of agriculture. And both of these contribute to deforestation because agriculture require land, and to get the land, forests need to be cleared. But we need the food, right? But again, we have to remember sustainability. We are studying all of this so that we can find the best ways to produce our food and at the same time protect our environment. Now, how about this one? That's me. I'm the good-looking guy on the right is your teacher, Mr. Angat, and I'm standing beside a gasoline station. And you see here that there is a sign that says may contain up to 10% ethanol. Ethanol is a type of fuel that is derived from plants, especially from corn. And corn are grown in farms. 10% of the fuel that we use now in most of our cars contains 10% ethanol. Again, this ethanol comes from plants. And because we need more ethanols to power up our cars, more trees are being cut so that more corns can be planted. And from those corns, more ethanol can be produced. But at least it is renewable. That's the good thing about it. It's renewable because once we use ethanol, we can produce ethanol again by growing corn. But the adverse effect of it is that we need more land to grow more corn as the demand for ethanol increases. Ethanol is a renewable fuel. It's good, it's renewable, but it's bad because we need more corn to produce more ethanol. Urbanization also results to higher population in a certain area. and that area is what we call as the city. When urbanization sets in, it results to higher population density, which means that there are more people in a small area. So if you go to New York, you will notice that uh, everywhere you look, there are so many people, and the buildings are so high that they have a lot of people in them. So that's what we call as higher population density. Small space, but with so many people in it. Okay. Development of agriculture requires the clearing of forests to provide more land for growing crops. Now look at this one. This used to be all forested area, but now it was converted to farm. And same as this. This used to be a forested area. Now it was converted into a grazing land. A grazing land is a place where they let the cattle and other animals to feed on the grass. So they cut the trees and then they let the grass grow so that the animals can have something to eat. And we call that the grazing land. Okay. Now, if farmers do not control the grazing of their livestock, what will happen is what we call as overgrazing. Overgrazing can lead to desertification, just like this one. So these cattle here should not be feeding on this area for the whole year. They need to be moved from one place to another so that this area will revive itself and allow the grass to grow. If the grass is not allowed to regrow or to grow again, then what will happen is like this. The land will become so dry and the topsoil will be blown away by the soil or carried away by the runoff and will cause the land to be unusable anymore. Overgrazing is when the cattle are not controlled from eating the grass from a grazing land. Okay. Greenhouse gases warm our planet. Greenhouse gases includes carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and others. Now, these greenhouse gases are very important to us because they prevent Earth from freezing. Without greenhouse gases, we will all be frozen. But too much of the greenhouse gases is also not good. And that is what we have now. That's our problem now. We have too much greenhouse gases that our planet is becoming too warm. So we need to remove some of those greenhouse gases. And one way to do that is to plant more trees. Okay? But of course, we do not want to remove all the greenhouse gases or we will be frozen. Okay? Now, how do we produce those greenhouse gases? Burning fossil fuel produce greenhouse gases. The carbon dioxide, which is the most common greenhouse gas, rises up into the atmosphere and traps the heat on Earth. And this causes a very hot temperature that results to climate change. Now, if we cut the trees, then all the carbon dioxide that we produce from our technology or from our breathing, it will all go up there and will all trap the heat. And this is what will happen to us. We'll have the enhanced greenhouse effect. And the enhanced greenhouse effect is what we call as global warming. Roots hold the soil in place, preventing erosion. So you'll see the soil here. They are binding the soil. So when it rains, the soil is not easily washed away by runoff. Now, without the trees, this is what happens. A landslide can happen and this landslide ruins the quality of the soil. Now, there are ways wherein we can protect the soil and at the same time um, maintain the development of an urbanized area. Like, look at this one. It's a porous paver. So this one will allow water to be absorbed by the soil rather than covering it with total asphalt, because if you cover this with all asphalt, what will happen is that the soil will not be able to absorb the water, and in time we will run out of groundwater. But with this one allows the soil to absorb the water and prevent flooding. So to prevent erosion, flooding, and pollution of lakes, we can support the construction of porous pavers in car parks and other areas. The water that we have on Earth is very minimal. Less than 0.5% is usable to us because most of the water on Earth is salt water. 97% of the water on Earth is salt water, and 2.5% is frozen in ice. Even though that it's fresh water, it's frozen solid. So the only water that we have that we can actually use is 0.5% only. And that 0.5% of water on Earth that is usable to us is used on the following. Most of the water on Earth is used for irrigation. Irrigation is what farmers do in order to bring water to their plants. So basically, irrigation is the process of watering the plants. Thermoelectric is the process of using the water as a coolant or as the substance that's heated so that the turbines can work and the generators can produce electricity. So thermoelectric is the use of water to produce electricity. Public use, this is what we use in the household. Industrial means in factories and others, many other things. So most of the water is used for irrigation. That's 40%. Some of it, 39% is used for electricity production. Now these two are always very close to each other. Now this is what we call a dam. A dam is a man-made storage of water. Now, the dams serve two purposes. The first one is to reserve water for human consumption during summer. So when summer comes and we don't have too much rain, this is where we get our water. The water that we use in our home is taken from this water. Also, agricultural lands get their water here to irrigate their farms. Another reason why dams are built is because this water here that has a very high potential energy is used to produce electricity through the use of turbines and generator. So when the water is released, the turbine rotate or spin, and then this mechanical energy is converted by the generator into electricity. Of course, this used to be a forest here. So in building dams, they also cut a lot of trees so that they can submerge the area with water. This area here, this valley here, used to be a forest by itself. Now, a small dam is what we have in Salem Lake. So if you've been there, that's how it's look like. So this is the dam that we have there. The best way to protect our environment is to reuse, reduce, and recycle. Our target is zero waste. So we can avoid those things that pollute our environment. We can reduce our consumption. We can reuse things so that we can reduce our consumption still and the production of trash. And then we can recycle. And then the most minimal one should be the dispose. let us not dispose things that can still be used, because if we easily dispose things, then we add up to the trash in the landfill. Okay. So again, reuse, reduce, recycle, and avoid. Avoid those things that destroy our environment. Hopefully, with this lesson, you are now ready to get a good score in our MC assessment. Thank you so much. Bye bye.